over the next 8 days, the weaknesses of each of these candidates, because that will drive their behavior. And more often than not, these races are lost rather than won. And so that's going to be the big test and the big challenge for both of them. I thought it was interesting that David pointed out that people know what they're getting out of the former president and not sure they like it. People are not sure what they're getting out of the vice president, and they're not sure they will like it. And so, again, the weakness component is interesting. I think the fact that both of them have turned to just these big rallies is also a sign of weakness because they're not doing the hard work and heavy lifting of leading in the present. We talked about this a lot last week in terms of it's easy to do some kind of cheap nostalgia, looking back, trying to bring back the good old days, again, playing to voters' discontent with where they are right now. And so it's easy to say, well, make America great again, or we're going to bring back the good old days when inflation was low. But that's backward facing. And then you have the Harris campaign, who's really trying to colonize the future and the unknown. But we're going to make it better. So whatever your discomfort you're feeling now, we're going to make it better in some future state, some misty future. But the reality is leadership only happens in the present. And if we don't get to have conversations in the present about principles and good policy, then we're going to get more politics and nothing will change. So that's the test for all of us as we approach Election Day. What will we choose? It's not so much a choice of left or right, Democrat or Republican. It's not even about whether we go future or past. It's about, do we choose leadership? And do we choose leadership in the present? We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson.
It's been an unusually warm October.
Most 80-degree plus days ever in history.
But it is October.
Snow levels could come down to 5,000 feet again.
Expect scary cold temps for Halloween week.
And get an updated KSL forecast before any tricks or treats.
In your car at 102.7 FM.
This is the story of a very special woman. Just a few knew about her superpowers. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
I don't feel so good.
You do feel hot. Dayquil Kids will take care of that fever.
What about my cough?
Dayquil Kids has that covered.
Will it make my throat feel better?
Yes, that too.
But will it taste good?
Yep, Dayquil Kids comes in your favorite flavor.
Purple?
Well, yes, it's grape.
Try new Dayquil Kids Plus Fever, the daytime coughing, aching, sore throat fever just for kids medicine. Safe for kids 6+. Use as directed.
Do you feel like it's impossible to lose weight on your own? We know the secret to losing weight and keeping it off long-term without drugs or injections. At SaltLakeCityFatLoss.com, many clients lose 20 to 30 pounds in a month or two with our staff support and accountability. And we do that without prepackaged meals, no exercising, no hormones, no injections, drugs, or surgery. Go to SaltLakeCityFatLoss.com now.
I'm Dave Noriega. One of the things I loved about Salt Lake City Fat Loss, they would send me daily texts, videos, phone calls, whatever I needed to help keep me on the program, and I lost 57 pounds in 60 days. Go to slcfatloss.com.
To learn about our program, go to saltlakecityfatloss.com and schedule your free private phone consultation. Our staff will walk you through our entire program, talk about your health goals, and see if it's a good fit for you. Call 801-450-1882 or go to saltlakecityfatloss.com to schedule your free phone consultation now. That's saltlakecityfatloss.com. Results may vary.
This Friday from 10 to 1, the movie show comes to Sound Sleep Medical. But first, take the time to learn about a better night's rest. Sound Sleep Medical delivers oral appliance therapy that treats sleep apnea without the use of CPAP machines. They're professionally fit, warranted, and covered by most major medical insurance. End the days of a poor night's sleep. Sound Sleep Medical will help. Call Sound Sleep Medical at 801-716-8672 for details. Sound Sleep Medical.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason
on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. Of course, the economy has been a top issue in this election cycle, as it always is. But the big question around the economics is not just what it means in terms of the politics. What actually happens after the election is over? What does the economy look like for all of us that are casting our votes this week? And the real impact around the kitchen table is what we want to find out about. And really thrilled to have joining us in studio today. Of course, Natalie Gochner serves as the Associate Dean in the David Eccles School of Business and is Director of the Kem C. Gardner Policy Institute at the University of Utah. Always love to have Natalie on the show. And Michael Strain, who we've had on the show many times, Director of Economic Policy Studies and the Arthur F. Burns Scholar in Political Economy at the American Enterprise Institute. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks for having us, Boyd.
Great to be back.
Natalie, let's start with you. This is so much of your focus up at the University of Utah has been around bringing in great people like Michael, these impact scholars, and really helping to shape and frame some crucial conversations. So what are the conversations you've been having with Michael in town this week?
Oh, yeah. Well, our president, Taylor Randall, has asked us to be on a path to become a top 10 public university with unsurpassed societal impact. And one of the ways we create impact, we do it in a lot of ways, but we bring in public intellectuals who share ideas and help us process this changing, complex world better. Michael has been in front of the Utah Economic Council today, which is our equivalent to the Council of Economic Advisors on the national level. He's been in front of community leaders, and the best part was we had him up on campus in front of about 120 students sharing insights about macroeconomics, about trade policy, about debt, and all the ramifications of these forces in our world today.
Yeah, fantastic. And Michael, it's great to have you in studio and in the Beehive State. Normally we get a long-distance chat with you, but we're glad to have you in studio today. Give us a little sense of some of those discussions today. And I want to start with the students. What was on the students' mind when it comes to economics?
Well, first let me just say that I'm so impressed with the Gardner Institute and with what Natalie has built. The sense of community here and her ability to create a convening space, a space that produces policy-relevant research, a space that is trusted by government to provide advice and to the media is just extremely impressive. And so I'm very happy to be here, and it's been wonderful to see how much Natalie has built, and it's been wonderful to spend some time with this community.
Hey, Michael, may I interrupt and say that is a team effort, right? I've had a lot of support from the community, an incredible staff, a wonderful
it's the Utah.
dean.
We just call it the Utah model,
The
Michael.
Utah model. I like Utah. There's a lot to like here. Utah is different than Washington in many ways.
Yes.
What's on their minds? I mean, look, I think I think what's on their minds seems to be what's on the minds of a lot of voters. Things seem to be going okay. Stuff is expensive. They're worried about student debt a little bit. I picked up. They're too young to be buying houses by and large, but that seemed to be on their mind when we were talking. And so, kind of big picture, things are going well, but there are some issues that are on their minds.
Yeah, definitely. And as you met with some of the community leaders and economic folks, Utah, of course, has been punching above its weight for a long time on the economic front, really has become this not just a crossroads to the west, but a crossroads to the world. What is it that you see here in Utah that maybe we need to start looking at a little differently in terms of what's happening back in Washington, D.C.?
Well, Utah, my sense of the policy community here in Utah, and I've spent a little bit of time here doing various things over the years, is that there is a strong interest in the evidence, what works and what doesn't in a very practical way. There seems to be a desire to improve the lives of people who live in Utah, and there seems to be a hunger to attract people from other parts of the United States to come move here, a hunger to attract business activity to come here, and a hunger to grow and expand. And that is paying dividends in my judgment. There are a lot of states that feel kind of complacent and they're resting on their laurels and their politics frankly look a lot more like Washington, where there's a lot of zero-sum thinking and a lot of competing interest groups trying to get a bigger slice of the pie, and that in my view is not a great way to run a state. But Utah seems different in many important ways.
Yeah, let's get to two of the big things that I think are impacting so many. A lot of talk around tariffs of late. Very fascinating that we have both a Republican nominee and a Democratic nominee, and they seem to agree a lot on that tariffs should be part of the policy. Break that down for us. That's a bit of a head scratcher, I think.
It's a bit of a head scratcher. I mean, I think I think President Trump really is a mercantilist, and I think he believes that if the United States imports something from abroad, that in a tangible sense we are losing, and that other company is and that other country is gaining, and I think that sense really guided a lot of the policies that he implemented during his term. Also, quite a bit of concern, obviously, about the U.S.'s strategic competition with China, China's bad practices on the trade front, and that I think contributed to the tariff regime. Although President Trump, it should be remembered, imposed tariffs on the EU, imposed tariffs on Canada, imposed tariffs on our allies, and then I kind of think President Biden walked into office with this infrastructure in place,
right?
And I don't think President Biden is a mercantilist. I think President Biden is a Democrat, and it's hard for a Democrat to remove tariff barriers, given the importance of labor unions and the Democratic Party's coalition. And I think that the national security community in the Biden administration was concerned that reducing tariff rates on China would be seen as a concession, and that they wouldn't be getting anything out of it. And that begs the question: well, why didn't you think of something to get out of it?
Yeah.
And that just didn't end up happening. And so now here we are with Trump and President Trump running against Vice President Harris. President Trump has not lost his enthusiasm for protectionism and has not lost his enthusiasm for tariffs. My sense is that Vice President Harris is more ambiguous about this. I mean, she's certainly not saying I'm going to get rid of all these tariffs, but she's not saying, I'll see your 200% EV tariff and raise you to 400%. And so I don't think we really, or at least I don't think I really have a strong sense of what her views on that issue are.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. And let's get to the back end of all of this, and that's the debt and deficit spending. This is I was telling people earlier today that over the next 8 days there'll probably be more promises made than could ever be kept in the history of several lifetimes.
At the rate we're going, no one's going to pay income tax.
That's right. Free cars for everybody, free school,
everybody.
Free health care, free. And we know ultimately it's not. So talk to us in terms of the economics of all of that. Obviously the inflation that a lot of people are still feeling.
Sure.
Kind of break that down for us in terms of what should we be thinking about as we hear you get a card, you get a free this and a free that. What should we be really thinking about in terms of the impact of that?
Well, I think we should be concerned about this. There is a bipartisan consensus that the debt is not an issue that should be addressed. There is a bipartisan consensus that the major drivers of the debt, which are Social Security and Medicare spending, should not be addressed. There is a major bipartisan consensus that taxes on the bottom 98% of households should not be raised. And so if everybody agrees not to raise household income taxes and everybody agrees not to cut spending, then we don't really have a third option here.
That's right. Absolute predictability of consequences is what we call that at my house.
Yes, that's right. I think both candidates are interested in substantially increasing the size of the deficit. And, in an inflationary environment where we've just come out of a 4-decade high bout of inflation, that's something to worry about. And I think in general, the right way to think about this is that Congress and the president shouldn't be making decisions based on inflation, that they should leave that to the Fed. And the Fed, is responsible for keeping price inflation low and stable according to their congressional mandate. But what you're hearing from the Fed is, ease. And so if you're going to have Congress and the president running an expansionary fiscal policy and the Fed trying to get the policy rate down to 2.9% as quickly as possible, that's a situation to be worried about, I think.
Yeah, no question about that. And so as we look at how this impacts people around, again, sitting around the kitchen table, trying to figure out how is this kind of approach. We're equal opportunity offenders on this show, and as you said, there's a lot of agreement on the spending front and the non-changing of the game in terms of some of those other policies. What's the impact going to be there, and what should we be bracing for or watching for as these things continue to roll out?
Well, one thing that's possible, two things that are much more certain. It is possible that inflation reaccelerates, and that the rate of price increases accelerates, and I think we have pretty recent evidence that people react quite negatively to that. If President Trump ends up winning the election, I think you could tell a plausible story that if the American Rescue Plan of 2021, if the Biden pandemic stimulus of 2021 had been more responsible, had been significantly smaller, then President Trump might not have won that election. And so there are serious political consequences here, I think, as well. So that's one thing that may happen. Two things that I think are much more certain. We're not going to see prices fall, right? And so if you don't like paying $3 for a McDonald's cheeseburger, you're going to have to get used to that.
Yeah.
If you don't like the fact that it costs you $50 to take your family out to lunch instead of $35, which is what it cost you in 2019, you're going to have to get used to that. And finally, I think you're going to have to get used to higher interest rates for a while. If you're holding off on buying a home because you're waiting for a 2% 30-year fixed rate mortgage, you should probably quit waiting for that and try and figure out how to organize your finances so you can buy that home now. And the same thing with auto loans, the same thing with credit cards. Higher interest rates seem like they're here for a little while longer.
Yeah, great perspective as always. And Natalie, just as we round out, give us one of your takeaways quickly from some of these conversations today.
My major takeaway has been the value of economic thinking, structured thinking, policy thinking, to step away from the politics and think more about what are the pragmatic things we can do to remain prosperous and do right, by the world. And the last thing I'll say, Boyd, is that I have tremendous optimism about Utah and what we do. And by having people like Michael Strain visit, we learn, we become better, and we're already darn good.
Yeah.
And it's by continuing to stimulate ideas, have a lot of viewpoint diversity. One of the things that Michael encouraged our young students to do is to talk to someone that you disagree with and learn from them, keep an open mind. And I think it's through that kind of policy leadership where we're listening, where we're reading, where we're listening to outside experts that will keep Utah on the better side of economic prosperity, which is where we've been.
Yeah, no question. It's always about bringing the best and brightest to the state of Utah and taking the Utah model out to our nation's capital and beyond. That's the name of the game. Michael Strain from American Enterprise Institute and Natalie Gochter from the University of Utah. Thanks to both of you for joining us today. Great stuff. Great perspective as always. And we'll step aside for some bottom of the hour news. More inside sources coming up next here on KSL News Radio. We'll be right back.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bonas. KSL's top local story this hour. 3 people survived after their light airplane went down and caught fire just across the state line in Arizona. Here's KSL News Radio's Michael Commit.
The plane crashed in a remote patch of desert after taking off from the St. George Regional Airport, but the 3 people on board only suffered minor injuries and were able to hike to a nearby community. Locals then helped firefighters get to the burning plane, and the fire was contained.
The Mojave County Sheriff's Office and the BLM took charge of the fire after that. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Vice President Harris campaigning today in Michigan, touring the Corning Hemlock Semiconductor facility in Saginaw.
My opponent spends full time talking about just kind of diminishing who we are as America and talking down at people, talking about, I don't know, that we're the garbage can of the world. We're not.
Former President Trump was back in the battleground state of Georgia today after a rally last night in New York City. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day now, 322 points, and the NASDAQ is up by 82. And we'll see a storm moving in tonight. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
Want to keep your gas-powered engines running like new? Stable's proprietary formulas are proven by third-party testing to outperform the competition in keeping fuel fresh, preventing corrosion, and cleaning the entire fuel system. With Stable, you can have confidence you are doing the right thing for your engine's long-term health. Just pour into your gas can or fuel tank, then top off with fresh fuel. At every fill-up or when you store, start with Stable. Available where fuel additives are sold.
Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds, which could be life-changing. I mean, you could put that money towards that zero-turn lawnmower you've always wanted. And after using its edge-shaping technology to meticulously sculpt the face of the Mona Lisa into your grass, you'll become the undisputed king of Saturday morning lawn care, leaving your neighbor and sworn enemy Gary to question his place in the delicate neighborhood ecosystem. And it's all because you could save money switching at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates, not available in all states.
You do countless things without a second thought to protect your family and home. Every time you're in the car, you buckle your seatbelt. Before the next load of laundry, you remove the dryer lint. When you head out, you always lock your doors. And one simple task, done far less often, can protect your family and home this winter. Schedule a furnace inspection by a certified heating contractor to check for safety and efficiency. A friendly reminder from Enbridge Gas.
Do you worry about how much someone drinks?
Do you feel angry or depressed most of the time? Do you feel neglected or unloved?
Do you feel you attract people who tend to be compulsive or abusive?
Do you have money problems because of someone else's drinking?
Are you afraid or embarrassed to bring your friends home?
Do you feel that if the drinker loved you, she or he would stop drinking?
If you answered yes to any of these questions, you are not alone.
More than half of all adults have a family history of alcoholism.
Not everyone trapped by alcohol is an alcoholic.
Families and friends are suffering too. Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Call 1-866-200-0223 or visit alanon.org/help.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly, completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
A quiet drive in progress. No accidents or delays on your freeways or main secondaries. Where you will see a slightly reduced speed is both directions of Mountain View Corridor in South Jordan near daybreak. That is due to road work. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Breezy and 63 for a high today with a chance of rain. Rain and snow tomorrow with a high of only 48. And right now we're at 60 degrees with partly cloudy skies. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
The Major Brent Taylor Foundation has taken the lead in capturing the essence of military service and national pride while celebrating Veterans Day. You can't contain it in just a day. The annual display of the massive American flag in Coldwater Canyon is a poignant tribute to the legacy of Major Brent Taylor, honoring his service and the sacrifice of all veterans. Through a variety of associated events from blood drives, memorial marches, the foundation fosters real civic engagement and collective action in commemorating the service and heroism of our military members and their families. The foundation leads by example, and how you actually do this, what leadership looks like and sounds like. We always turn to Jenny Taylor, of course, wife, Gold Star widow of Utah Army National Guard Major Brent Taylor, and who's just one of my favorite people on the planet because she's just a make-it-happen person. And Jenny joins us on the line. Jenny, welcome back to the show.
Always great to be with you, and I'll be so sad next week when we can't. So thanks for all you do and all you've done for years on the air, Boyd.
Oh, you are so kind. I was actually just joking before we started. I think the first time I interviewed you, you were in a secure, known location in your bathroom with your feet against the door because your children were trying to storm the castle.
Yes. We've at least come a long way, and all the kids are in school during the day. So it's a little safer now. It's just me and the dog. So as long as the mailman doesn't show up, we're set.
All right. That's a good thing. Well, we know I can't believe we're almost to the 1st of November.
I know.
And you have let out, not just in the state, not just in the community, but across the country in saying, you know what? A single day for Veterans Day is not quite going to cut it. You've now expanded to 2 full weeks plus. Tell us what's coming down the pike and what we should be thinking about rolling into November.
Oh, we are so excited. And Boyd, I hope what you're thinking about is the price of freedom and the men and women who bravely pay it. Those are our veterans. Those are our service members from any era, any decade, any place around the world that they've been assigned. And that's what we want you thinking about. And we do want you thinking about it more than just on 11/11. So we start on 11/1. November 1st, this weekend, we're going to be getting ready to fly our giant flag that measures 78 by 150 feet. This Saturday, you can help us hike it up in the morning. We'll hike at 8 a.m. At noon, we'll have a deployment ceremony from below if you want to watch that flag drop. And then from there, like you mentioned before, it's just one event after another, really connecting young and old, military and civilian through conversation. And this is exactly what you've excelled at so well for so many years on the air and outside of the radio, getting people to talk, getting people to have those conversations. I would call them crucial conversations. If the men and women who have served in our military don't have conversations with those of us who've enjoyed what they've offered us through their service, we'll never really be able to appreciate it. So we try to honor them, celebrate them, and join with them. We want to be side by side with them. We want to hear those stories. We want to ask those questions. We want to give them a chance to tell those stories. So we have an outdoor devotional. We do have a blood drive. We have a memorial ruck march. We're involved with the beautiful Veterans Day Parade in Layton City on Saturday, November 9th. And then as this flag flies that literally is larger than life, hundreds, if not thousands of people come to either look or hike along that trail. And we hope that as they do, they're having conversations. Kids are asking parents questions. Veterans are telling their stories. Civilians like you and me have a lot to learn and come to appreciate by just listening to those experiences.
Yeah, no question about it. And that's one of my favorite parts of all of this. I mean, looking up Coldwater Canyon is breathtaking. But then to be able to be in that setting, and whether it's hiking up or whether it's just sitting there at the base and looking up, and then to have a conversation with a veteran is a game changer for me. I think that
it's a game changer. It's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's really transformational because, as you pointed out, we don't have nearly enough of those, and we're not nearly as interconnected as we used to be to our military women and men. Give us some other thoughts in terms of how we should go about those conversations and where we could actually lean into those conversations.
Okay, I love that you use the word lean in because honestly, it's a two-way street. I have experienced, I'm sure you've seen the same. You see a man or woman in uniform at the grocery store or the airport. You say, thank you for your service. You have kind of an awkward handshake and everybody parts and goes their way. Now, a lot of military members, that's uncomfortable for them, right? They never signed up to be thanked for their service. They're not looking for accolades. They're serving because by nature they are the type of person who wants to serve. And yet, we've got to lean in a little bit to that discomfort. And instead of just saying, hey, thank you for your service, what if you said, tell me a little about your service? And it might start with as simple as, where have you served? That's a very simple, safe question. Maybe what capacity did you serve in, or what have you learned from your service? I think if we can have those conversations and make it more than a trite thank you, we'll develop some of that transformational energy that you talked about. Now, in saying that, please don't think I mean don't say thank you for your service. Please, please, please say it. But don't just say it. Please live it. Please live the kind of life that merits the kind of sacrifice these men and women have made and continue to make. I love when you said, we're not as interconnected between military and civilian populations. And in a way, we could argue that's a very good thing. We don't need as many of us at war these days than maybe they did in the World War II generation. We don't need as many of us rationing our butter and our nylons and whatever other thing we're rationing, because we live in a time of relative peace, even though that feels contrary to everything we've ever heard in the news. Less than 1% wears the uniform today. Less than 8% is still alive who've ever worn that uniform. Man, that means there's a whole heck of a lot of us that should be able to show our support, lean into that service they provided, beg for information. So if you're listening and you're not military, please be brave enough to start a conversation. And if you're listening and you are military, would you please do my kids and their entire generation a favor of being willing to talk about your service? I know it's uncomfortable. I know you didn't join for the accolades. Tell me about boot camp. Tell me where you lived. Tell me a funny time you and the guys did something completely crazy because you were bored out of your mind. Or tell me the difficult times you faced in a war zone. Let me see so I can know, so I can appreciate.
That's right. And that's how we actually link arms together. I think it's so important for us to, again, say thank you, absolutely, but please do not stop there. Ask a question. If you must speak, ask a question. Tell me more. Where did you serve? Give me an experience. What was the best moment? When did you feel that real pride? When did you know you made a difference? And then for our military folks to be willing to answer those questions and lean back in to those conversations. That's where we go from beyond celebration, and that next generation will start to get to that emulation phase, and that's what will actually transform our lives and our communities.
Oh, I love that. Absolutely. Amen to everything you just said. Let's do that. Let's lean in. Let's emulate. Let's link arms. And let's really bridge that gap. And I think if you were to ask, what's the mission of the Major Brent Taylor Foundation, it really is to bridge those gaps between civilian and service member, between young and old, between the greatest generation and the rising generation. And adults these days lament a lot about kids these days. But I would argue that then adults these days better get to work at helping kids these days understand. And that's really what we're all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. As always, you can check out all of it at the Major Brent Taylor Foundation, majorbrenttaylor.com. And again, you've got 2 weeks worth of things starting on November the 1st with the flag going up the trail at 10 a.m., Coldwater Canyon Trailhead. And then just a series of events, hikes, blood drives, fundraising, gala dinner, all kinds of outdoor events, and a devotional on November the 10th. And it's an opportunity for all of us to come together, link arms, shoulder to shoulder. This is what being an American, especially in a time like this, where a lot of people saying we're too divided, a lot of people saying the younger generation doesn't get it. I disagree with it all. And if you head up and experience this, you'll say it's right. That's what America is really all about. Jenny, as always, we appreciate your leadership. This is what it looks like. This is what it sounds like, folks, to make a difference on a daily basis. Jenny, thank you, as always, for making time for us.
Thank you, Boyd. Hope to see you all in North Ogden over the next couple of weeks.
All right. Fantastic. That's Jenny Taylor from the Major Brent Taylor Foundation, and it's just a string of events up there that you want to be part of. It'll change you. It'll transform you. I triple dog dare you. I don't make too many triple dog dares on this show. Triple dog dare you. It'll change your life, and it'll make you a better citizen and a better member of your community. We'll be right back.
KSL Broadcast Group contests are open to participants 13 years of age and older that are residents of Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, and Nevada, unless otherwise specified. Employees or agents of the station, Bonneville International Corporation, or other area radio stations, or any entity associated with the contest may not enter. Persons who have won in the last 90 days from a station contest or event are not eligible. Full general contest rules are available at kslnewsradio.com.
Hey, diamond lovers. Shane Company knows fine jewelry. That means a lot when you're looking for a dream engagement ring, a beautiful keepsake, or the perfect gift. When it's this important, you want someone who knows exactly how to work with your budget. Not against it. Someone who knows you deserve a piece more beautiful than you've ever imagined. Through 4 generations as a family business, we've always sourced our diamonds and gemstones directly, cut out the middleman, and passed the savings on to you. Come see us in store and compare our wide selection of diamonds, rubies, and a rainbow of sapphires in different shapes and sizes. So many in stock and ready to take home today. Create your dream engagement ring in 3 easy steps, or pick a perfectly preset ring that's created by our in-house design team. Browse our selection of fine jewelry gifts for everyone in your life, from diamond and gemstone studs to must-have tennis bracelets and beautiful birthstone necklaces. With our everyday competitive prices and unmatched free lifetime warranty, Shane Company is your go-to destination for fine jewelry. Visit shaneco.com and come in to see for yourself. Shane Company, your friend and jeweler.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
If it's a door-to-door salesman, buyer beware. Hi, this is Jason.
And Kathy of Window World.
Answer that door and prepare for some serious baloney.
You know, overpriced, but on sale today.
Big special.
Manager's discount.
Model home in the neighborhood.
Remember, the sale ends today.
Hey, it's all baloney.
Window World's different.
Check windowworldutah.com.
Or call 801-281-8111.
Window World.
Simply the best for less.
And as Doug always said,
that's no baloney.
Hello, this is Congresswoman Celeste Malloy. I'm running for re-election to represent you and keep Utah's conservative values in Washington, D.C. Like you, I'm tired of a government that spends too much, listens too little, and makes all of our lives harder. In Washington, I'm pushing back against bad ideas and liberal policies. Let me keep representing you so I can keep fighting for you, because we are just getting started.
I'm Celeste Malloy, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Celeste for Congress.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
All the talks we've had over the years, including what you've told me about not using alcohol and other drugs, they stick with me. And believe it or not, they really do make a difference, especially at times that matter most.
Hey, want a drink?
No thanks, I'm good. So thank you, Dad, for talking and preparing me for what's ahead.
Thank you for talking.
For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
An airliner takes off from the Pacific Northwest, carrying 101 passengers and crew. Most aboard Flight 293 are active-duty military and their families, headed to Cold War assignments in Alaska.
Surveillance of the Soviet military buildup.
But somewhere over the ocean, with no distress call, the airliner plunges into the icy water below.
Even if all 4 engines quit, that aircraft would fly.
There were no survivors and no bodies were ever recovered. For decades, loved ones were left to wonder
what happened to Flight 293 and why hasn't there been any follow-up?
The government turned its back. Passengers and crew of Flight 293 were forgotten by everyone, except their families.
Unless we pursue it, we will never be issued a true explanation.
Unsolved Histories: What Happened to Flight 293 is available now. Follow us at unsolvedhistoriespod.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, 3 people walked away from a plane crash yesterday just across the state line from St. George. Second, Vice President Harris and former President Trump were in battleground states today. Harris in Michigan and Trump in Georgia. Third, showers begin around 6 this evening as a significant storm is expected overnight. 60 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
As artificial intelligence reshapes our world at an unprecedented rate, the United States is being pressured to act, to shape, form, control. However, with Congress failing to pass meaningful AI legislation, despite introducing over 100 bills, we face mounting challenges in governing the transformative technology. So moving forward, the interplay between state initiatives, executive actions, legislative gridlock are all going to influence how we'll shape AI's future in our constitutional republic. Paulo Carfo is a former IBM executive and senior fellow at Harvard's Center for Business and Government. And Paulo, welcome to the show.
Hi, Boyd. Glad to be here.
Great piece in The Hill today talking about some of the important decisions that Congress just has to get to in the next Congress starting in January. Give us a little bit of the lay of the land in terms of AI, where we've been, and then we'll get to what we need to do moving forward.
Yeah, Boyd, I think first and foremost, just to frame the issue, I'm not one of those like doomers that believe this is the end of humankind. On the contrary, I believe that there is great potential in the use of the technology for good. With that said, as in a good race car, we need good brakes, right?
Yes.
So safeguards to make sure that we continue enjoying the benefits of progress. And I think the time has come for us to take action. So
Yeah.
I think that's a very special moment. Huh?
Yeah, and I'm so glad you framed it that way, Paulo, because this is not a doomsday event. This is not humans will be gone in the next decade kind of thing. But it is one of those highly powerful things that we've got to shape and form so that we can maximize it for all the good and make sure we're controlling those things that may be suboptimal in terms of what we do. As you pointed out in your piece in The Hill, we've had a lot of bills come to the floor or at least be introduced into the Congress. What do we need to get to? Because none of these seem to have really gone anywhere. So what should we be thinking about as we move it forward?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. It's just to go over a little bit of the statistics. First, 59% of the public already is favor to some sort of initiative by Congress to try and create the safeguards that we're discussing here. Now, just yesterday, the BSA, which is the Industry Association for Enterprise Software Companies, they published a report saying that we have had just in 2024 more than 700, believe it or not, 700 state-level AI bills or proposals, and in the U.S. Congress, 100 of them. Now, in the states, several of them are starting to be enacted. However, at the federal level, nothing has happened so far, despite bipartisan efforts and, as we mentioned, more than 100 proposals. This is generating fragmentation and uncertainty, and both are bad for business. So if we're thinking about long-term investments even in a safe direction, it's not a good scenario.
Yeah, the uncertainty is just brutal because it prevents real innovation and real strategy in terms of a company's investment or where things can move forward. You proposed in your piece at The Hill some of the things that should be shaping that. What are the values that should really guide our AI strategy? And so what should we be thinking about? What should Congress be thinking about as they look at some real solutions in the next Congress?
Yeah, as any policy, tech policy, or in this case, artificial intelligence policy, there are multiple interests that come into play. There is, market efficiency and power concentration. There are several antitrust actions currently in play. There are aspects of long-term safety, as we discussed in the beginning. There's also national security concerns and geopolitics, especially competition with China. There are industrial policy elements, and certainly, and equally as important, there's an element of public interest and public access to all of these technologies. Now, you can configure a policy giving different weights to each one of these elements. And it's important that this discussion take place in Congress, not only given our judicial and legislative framework, especially given some of the recent actions by the Supreme Court that reduce the ability of agencies to operate at their own discretion, but being elected officials, these elected officials are the ones who can represent the public and then create a normative definition of how you balance each one of these objectives. So these are kind of a few of the criteria to take into consideration.
Yeah, I think it's so vital that we do, one, have an actual strategy, bringing the right people, the right stakeholders into the mix there. So we are dealing with, as you mentioned, national security, dealing with things like threats from China. What does that look like? Also, this real hodgepodge in terms of what needs to be done at the state level, what needs to be done at the federal level. And as you pointed out, it's complicated. It is very complex, but it's not insurmountable. And so talk to us just a little bit about how do we make it surmountable? How do we take the complexities and turn them into a process that is forward moving and actually gets us to the kind of results we need?
Yeah, let's take a glass half full perspective on this problem. First, we're not starting from zero. Over the last 3 years, there has been, great progress, both in terms of acceptance that some action is needed as opposed to having a completely laissez-faire approach to the problem. But we also have had experiments in terms of legislation. In Europe has launched and has enacted in the form of law European Union Artificial Intelligence Act. Some say it's too heavy, too intrusive, and that can hamper innovation. With that said, as a straw man that we can benchmark against, in the UK recently approved a DMA under the Competitive Market Authority in the UK. It's kind of an agency that would oversee this. And here in the US, we have had already a series, just in the last year and a half to 2 years, of bipartisan proposals of legislation in this field. We have a proposal for an agency coming from Senators Lindsey Graham and Elizabeth Warren, right? One, unusual pairing. We
like those.
And we have, other similar proposals. So we are at a point in which we can learn from all of these different initiatives and now can start to balance the priorities and the objectives that we discussed before and do the right thing.
Yeah, so important, and making sure we're prioritizing the innovation, the public good, the national security. And I love that you concluded your piece with something we've been really hitting this week, and that is, in the midst of all of this, if we say we have a problem, it's a leadership problem. And if we have the right kind of bold leadership, we can make sure we get this policy right when it comes to AI so that we can maximize the good and we can protect ourselves from the threat as we move into the future. Paulo Carfo, former IBM executive, senior fellow at Harvard, and grateful for your perspective. Great piece. You can check out his piece at thehill.com and give you some things to think about when it comes to AI policy today. And Paulo, thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
So many important things to get to when it comes to AI. But as I said there, as we were concluding our conversation with Paulo, so much of this is a leadership issue. And who is going to lead? That's always the question. Whether it's an organization that says we don't have money for this, it's like, well, that's not really the problem. The problem is a leadership problem. Someone says we don't have enough to do that. It's a leadership issue. And when it comes to AI, we have to have those who are willing to step into the space and actually lead, like we need in so many other different places and spaces, especially as we come down the home stretch, 8 days until Election Day. And that wraps up hour number 1 of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. We'll step aside for some top-of-the-hour news. Don't go anywhere. In hour number 2, we're going to talk to JD Tuchili, talk about maintaining relationships in the midst of all of this, talk about the role of religious freedom in this year's election. We'll also talk about the ad battle between the campaigns and all of that and more coming up on the second hour of Inside Sources. Stick around.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. The Yellow Lake fire is now 66% contained, almost a month after it started. It's burned over 33,000 acres. Now, with a storm on the way, firefighters are pulling heavy equipment off the fire for safety reasons, and control of the firefighting effort will transition back to local officials tomorrow. Utah and BYU entering a different kind of rivalry starting Saturday. Both schools will take part in a food drive called Tackling Hunger Together. They'll be collecting food across the region all through the day before Thanksgiving. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The latest ABC News Ipsos poll shows Kamala Harris with a narrow lead over Donald Trump among likely voters, 51 to 47%. ABC News national correspondent Stephen Portnoy has more.
The survey gives Trump the advantage on the issues most important to voters, the economy and rising prices, while Harris is ahead of Trump on who's most trusted to protect democracy and look out for the middle class.
And the narrow gap still within the poll's margin of error. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day, 273 points right now, and the NASDAQ is up 48 right now. Our KSL weather, we're looking for a storm starting this evening. That's next. KSL News Time 2:01.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
This is Jay Broadbent from Alpine Home Medical. I'm excited to let you know we're currently having a sale on power scooters. As we celebrate the spirit of freedom and independence, we want to make sure you have the chance to experience it. We have a wide range of power scooters designed to enhance your mobility, and they're all available at a discounted price. These special offers only come around every couple of years, and once they're gone, they're gone. Come visit us at any of our 11 locations to take advantage of these fantastic deals, or you can browse our selection of discounted scooters on our website. We're committed to providing the 5-star experience. We can't wait to assist you in finding the perfect power scooter. Visit us online at alpinehomemedical.com. That's alpinehomemedical.com.
Ever drive a semi before?
I've never even driven before.
Well, step here to go, stomp on that pedal to stop.
It's hard to do something if you don't know what you're doing.
What's the stick for?
Just wiggle it now and then to shift gears.
A Learn and Earn account from Cyprus Credit Union gives teens the resources to practice money management and develop the confidence they'll need when it's time to step out on their own. See how your teen can earn up to $200 with a Learn and Earn account at cypruscu.com. Federally insured by NCUA.
Honk if you need anything.
Transform your old, outdated kitchen with Half Price Granite. For a limited time, Half Price Granite is offering special pricing starting at $25 per square foot installed. That's lower than most big box stores. These prices are some of the lowest around. Granite, quartz, marble, and quartzite, all starting at $25 per square foot installed. Call 801-486-1700 or visit halfpricegranite.com. Half Price Granite, affordable luxury.
Here's a way to get breaking news updates anywhere you go.
At the store or in a work meeting, you can get breaking news on your phone.
You can quickly read it, swipe, or click for more. It's super discreet, super fast.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. And here's Ricky Meese.
We've had a vehicle fire in Davis County on northbound I-15 in the Centerville area. It has been moved over to the right shoulder, but it is causing just a little bit of curiosity slowing in the area. No major delays. Common Spirit, hospitals, clinics, and caregivers all connected to advanced health care in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Healthcare with human kindness is here. Hello, human kindness. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Breezy and 63 for a high today with a chance of rain. Rain and snow tomorrow with a high of only 48. And right now we're at 60 degrees. The skies are mostly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
We know that elections can be stressful, and this election seems to be especially stressful. So much of the messaging is being pushed that we can't afford either candidate to win, that it will be, Armageddon, end of civilization as we know it. But we also have to remember that this political messaging is designed to play to those negative base emotions of anger and angst, fear and frustration. Whoever wins, we're still going to wake up in the morning. Wednesday morning always comes. It will, and we'll all get up. We'll go to work. We'll take care of our families. We'll serve in the community. The first Wednesday of November is what we have to remember. And so let's get underneath the headlines of the divisiveness of this political season and see if we can't just take a minute and chill out. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, as we come down the final 8 days of election 2024, it is time to chill out just a little bit, and nobody better to chill out with than J.D. Tuccilli, of course, contributing editor at Reason, has a great piece today really talking about the season and how we do need to just make sure we back off a little bit, take a deep breath, and get the proper perspective. And J.D., thanks for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
All right, let's dive into this. Of course, everything we hear is Armageddon. Whoever wins, it's going to be the end of days, the end of the republic, all of those kinds of things. What should we really be thinking about as we hear all of this stuff, whether it's at the water cooler, whether it's what we're seeing online, or whether it's over our back fence? How do we change the dynamic there?
Yeah, I mean, I think taking it all a lot less seriously. We're hearing all these warnings in the media about how if one presidential candidate wins, it's the end of democracy. And if the other candidate wins, maybe the last election ever. People are accusing each other of being evil for voicing support for one candidate or another, or saying they're going to sit this one out or vote third party. The tempers have gotten incredibly high over this, to the point where 28% of Americans, according to Yahoo News YouGov, say they find it very stressful to spend time with people who don't share their political views. Even worse, though, because, okay, stress, anxiety, we can get through that. Even worse, about a quarter of both Republicans and Democrats said they've actually ended relationships over political disagreements. I mean, that's just nuts. People are cutting off family and friends over this stuff. It's affecting workplaces. About 1 in 5 employees told the Society for Human Resource Management that they've been mistreated at work by their coworkers or peers because of their political views. And about 28% of workers of all ages and up to 40% of those younger, 18 to 34, say they would leave a job because of political differences at work, or if the CEO of the company expressed different views than they have. I mean, we're letting poison infiltrate everything. It's spreading out like an oil spill and just ruining everything it touches.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and it's also interesting in some of those who said they were either mistreated or isolated at work. Some of those, I'm sure, actually happened. Some were probably preemptively offended that they knew so and so was going to get mad at something they were going to say, and it does become this oil spill of a vicious cycle, and it almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy in some ways. As you move through that. We did some interesting things last week, JD, with some younger people, some polling of 15 to 26-year-olds. And they have far less polarized views. In fact, most of them say that the person they talk to most about politics is someone that they actually do disagree with, and they can't fathom ending a relationship over politics.
And that's healthy, and I wish that was more typical, because that's the way to approach things. Unfortunately, some people in that same age group, when they go to the dating scene, when they try and find a partner in life, are finding that politics has ruined that too. Part of that is because men and women are drifting apart so far politically. Now, it's good if they're talking to each other, but when it comes to actually making romantic connections, the fact that women now, men are tending center to center right. Women are actually veering pretty far left in their political views. And it's to the point now where dating apps are adding political tags, so you can filter out people who don't share your political views, because there's a 30-point gap in the ideology between men and women of the same age. And they're stating that they don't want to date people who don't agree with them on politics. I'll tell you, that's going to make it really hard for them to match up as it goes forward into the future. It's also really unhealthy. I mean, it's affecting their interactions. It's affecting everything we have when it touches things like romantic relationships, when it affects our relations with our relatives, when it affects ongoing friendships, when people say that they just don't want to associate with those who don't agree with them.
Yeah. I want to get to another point that you alluded to in your piece at Reason.com. And this is this whole idea of when our identity becomes our politics, or our politics become our identity, and what that does, and how, again, it's kind of part of that oil spill analogy. It just exudes and oozes into all of the wrong places and spaces in our lives.
Yeah, I stole that term oil spill from Daniel Della Posta, who is a Penn State sociologist. And he used that term to describe the fact that things like brand preferences, musical tastes, are being affected by partisanship. To the point now where conservative, okay, you must listen to country music. Liberal, okay, you like Teslas. I mean, stuff like this now becomes political indicators. People don't. It's not just something that correlates, but people actually make choices about brands that you will associate with or will not purchase based upon partisanship. So yes, politics becomes our entire identity, and it permeates everything in life. And that, basically forces society to further fracture. It's already badly fractured. We've discussed that before, but it forces it to fracture further because it breaks down those healthy relationships in family, a friend, and workplace that might extend across these partisan lines and build a healthy community.
Yeah, impossible to build a bridge when you're driving a wedge. It just, there's no way to do it. It just creates that divide that much bigger. Give us one last thing before I let you go, JD, in terms of what ought we to be thinking about in terms of chilling out?
Well, I mean, that was my advice. Chill out. Stop taking this stuff so seriously. Yes, politics are important, but they're not the be-all and end-all. There's family, there's faith, there's work, there's hobbies, there's all these other connections we have with the people in our lives and the world around us. It's not just all about partisan politics. We need to calm down, chill, and remember that there's more to life than next week's election.
Yeah, fantastic. Great perspective, as always. JD Tuccilli, contributing editor at Reason. You can check out his piece today at reason.com. And JD, thanks for making time for us, as always.
Thanks for having me on.
We'll chill out in your behalf today. So thanks thanks for that. All right, great perspective from JD Tuccilli. And it's time to think again about what we think we know when it comes to actually chilling out this political season and learning to just step back a little bit and rethink what we think we know. And I think the things that JD was trying to get us to are a lot of the things we've been trying to get at over the last several weeks and several months. And that is, look, all of this politics is downstream stuff from culture, from relationships, from community, and we should keep it there. It's when we allow it to become our identity, when we allow it to be in the middle of the middle of the middle of our lives. And so if we want that to be less stressful in our lives, make it less important in your lives. You don't have to follow every single thing on social media. You don't have to click on every aggravating headline. Don't reward bad behavior. Instead, find some of those other things, because there's a whole lot more going on than just the politics of all of this. Yes, it's important. Yes, we need to step in. Yes, we need to be informed. Yes, we need to engage. But this is not the essence of who we are as a people or as individuals. And that's what makes society really roll. It's not the politics. It's community and culture. Focus on that today. And as JD said, just chill out a little bit. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. We're just 7 days away from the historic 2024 election.
I'm running for governor because you deserve partisanship, not unchecked power.
It's been an honor of a lifetime to serve as your governor. We've accomplished so much together.
Do your homework and get your ballot in the mail. The election is next week, and we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
We're in St. George, and Jenny found a home online that she really loved.
And then we went through it with our realtor. He started pointing out things that were going to just lead us to a money pit.
We would have been in this house $50,000 or more in repairs.
With the help of our realtor, we were able to find a brand new home for $100,000 less than what we would have been paying for one that was 12 years older. We thought we were going to save money not using a realtor, but in the end, our realtor actually saved us over $150,000.
Let an experienced realtor guide you. Go to myrealtorstory.com.
My name is Brian King, and I'm running to be your governor because Utah is headed in the wrong direction, and we can do so much better. If you're frustrated by politics today, if you feel like politicians aren't listening to you, if you're looking for something different, for a leader who prioritizes common sense and bipartisanship, you have a place with us in this campaign. Join us and vote for Brian King for governor by November 5th. For the better.
Paid for by Brian for Utah. Ever been burned by a contractor? Tonight, a Utah family thought they hired a pro, but after paying big bucks, all they got was a big hole in their yard.
Called them, texted them, couldn't get a hold of them.
There appears to be a bit of a pattern here.
Then, tomorrow, Matt Gephardt investigates why current laws often leave consumers stuck.
It doesn't feel like justice.
And what steps you can take to protect yourself. Unfinished business, shady contractors, 2 stories that could save you thousands. Tonight and tomorrow on KSL 5 News at 10.
Do you worry about how much someone drinks?
Do you feel angry or depressed most of the time? Do you feel neglected or unloved?
Do you feel you attract people who tend to be compulsive or abusive?
Do you have money problems because of someone else's drinking?
Are you afraid or embarrassed to bring your friends home?
Do you feel that if the drinker loved you, she or he would stop drinking?
If you answered yes to any of these questions, you are not alone.
More than half of all adults have a family history of alcoholism.
Not everyone trapped by alcohol is an alcoholic.
Families and friends are suffering too. Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Call 1-866-200-0223 or visit alanon.org/help.
Email from school about the incident today.
Scary.
You know, teachers like me, parents, we don't always know as much as you guys do about what's going on with other kids.
Half the time, it's rumors.
Yeah, but if you're ever concerned about a friend who's having trouble with alcohol, prescription drugs, anything, you need to tell an adult, someone you know and trust. That can be hard, but speaking up about a problem is what helping a friend is all about.
For more information, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
At Fisher Investments, we may seem like other money managers, but we're different.
What makes you so different than the rest of us?
We ensure clients receive unparalleled service at every step of the relationship.
Tell me more.
Our investment counselors focus on service over sales, prioritizing clients' needs.
How do you make money?
We don't sell any commission-based products. We have a simple management fee based on the value of our client's portfolio. So we do better when our clients do better.
What about client portfolios?
We get to know each client, their finances, family, health, lifestyle, and more, and then we tailor a portfolio based on their specific goals and needs.
Your clients really come first then, huh?
Yes, we make them a top priority. Our goal is helping them achieve a comfortable retirement.
Wow, maybe we are different.
At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different. Learn more at fisherinvestments.com.
Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Dave and Debbie.
It's impossible to digest and consume all of the news that's now coming at us through either social media or through web pages or through the radio. Pick what is most impactful in your life and focus on that. And that's what Dave and I do every single morning. We pick those issues that are most important to our listeners and we boil it down so it's digestible. It's simple to understand.
I think we're trying to find the essence of the story. You know, you can't be an expert on all things, but that doesn't mean you can't be curious and really find out more and educate yourself and learn the complexities of an issue. But I think all of us start at ground zero on everything. Ask questions, show that curiosity.
And then if you need more research, you can always go to KSLNewsRadio.com and learn more.
Listen for Dave and Dejanovic 9 to noon on KSL News Radio.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, fire crews are making steady progress containing the Yellow Lake fire. Tomorrow's storm should help. Second, students at the U of U and BYU are competing in a food drive leading up to the rivalry football game. And third, the latest ABC News Ipsos poll shows Vice President Harris with a very narrow lead over President Trump. 60 degrees, mostly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
8 days to go in the presidential election cycle, and this particular election cycle has thrust the issue of religious freedom into the spotlight. The candidates have vastly different approaches to this complex topic. But as their opinions and views come into a little sharper focus, there's a lot of questions that still remain. And a lot of those questions are things that we should be thinking about, as well as those that we elect to high office. And that is, how should we define religious freedom? Whose interests should we prioritize? What role should faith play in the public square? How can we balance that with other civil rights? Kelsey Dallas, of course, is assistant managing editor for the Deseret News and is one of the great thinkers on the planet, someone we always love to have on the show. And Kelsey, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Give us a little compare and contrast as you look at the two candidates for the presidency, Kamala Harris, the vice president, former President Trump, as the challenger there, and give us a sense of how they each approach the issue of religious freedom.
Yes, as you alluded to in your introduction, there are multiple ways to define religious freedom, and I think that's captured really well if you compare the religious freedom reputations of Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. We know from Trump's 4 years in the White House that he is equipped to pick policymakers who really get into the weeds on religious freedom and add conscious protections to all sorts of federal policies, basically expanding the ability to claim an exemption or proactively claim legal protections because of your religious beliefs or religious activities. Harris, on the other hand, is associated with a broader, maybe more old school vision of religious freedom that's about building a religiously pluralistic nation, helping people celebrate their faith along with a variety of other traits. And the reason why she's associated with that is that she comes from this really interesting religious background with an interfaith set of parents, her own interfaith marriage, connections with people from all different faiths, even though she defines herself as Christian. And so she's held up as a religious freedom hero by many who are worried about Trump taking the country too far towards a conservative Christian bent and thinking Harris would be able to restore a more pluralistic reputation to the country.
Yeah, so interesting to look at where they come from on the points of the compass when it comes to their own faith. And how that shapes some of the things they would be dealing with policy-wise. When you look at the kind of the practical, tactical component of it in terms of how they have governed or how they have led or what they have tried to frame, how do you see that playing out?
Well, if you zero in on policy, that's why my coverage of Kamala Harris's stance on religious freedom ends with me getting yelled at on social media quite a bit. And what I mean by that is that she, in policy moves and policy proposals, especially during her time in the Senate, was looking to balance religious freedom against other rights, including LGBTQ rights. And it's come up on the campaign trail with her comments about abortion rights, being nervous about adding religious exemptions to a federal abortion law. Now, there are people of faith, there are people who would call themselves religious freedom advocates who support this approach where you balance religious freedom against other values. But to some religious freedom advocates, that means that you're abandoning religious freedom. You're sort of throwing it to the side in favor of other sorts of legal rights. And that's why there is a strong rallying cry around Trump that says he's the one who will actually defend religious freedom. He will proactively pass additional protections, and he will understand the more conservative people of faith who are sort of becoming a minority in politics and in the country as a whole, and perhaps need more protection today than they did in recent past.
Yeah, so fascinating. And I love the way you framed it in your piece at Deseret.com, because if the way you framed it, that if someone asked you who would be better out of the Harris campaign or the Trump campaign for religious freedom, you responded with your own question of what is that and what does that look like? And to me, that's the important conversation that we tend to miss in all of these kind of sweeping generalities. And as you pointed out, there's kind of the hero and villain that both of these two can play. And I think in the end, I'd love for you to kind of unpack a little bit the fact that probably a defender of religious freedom probably doesn't apply to either of these candidates in the end.
Yeah, it's very messy. I've talked a bit about Harris and how her actions on issues like abortion have made some folks question whether she's really committed to religious freedom. Well, with Trump, the criticism he gets is related to his past comments about minority faith groups in particular. So when he was in 2016 calling for a stop on Muslim entries to the United States, he's made a sort of below the line comments about the Jewish community, sometimes in a more joking fashion, but still many worry about sort of how his comments could be taken in the wrong context. The other fear is that because he sort of goes so full force into protecting religious freedom that it actually ends up hurting religious freedom's reputation, that religious groups are winning too much, dominating the legal landscape too much, and then in the long run, a lot of folks, mostly on the Democratic side, would be turned against religious freedom and not really see how it benefits everyone. So that's what I've tried to draw out in my coverage, is that each candidate is bringing a different approach to religious freedom. And so you can't simply say, okay, here is the winner. This is the person you should vote for on this issue. Each person really needs to think for themselves about what matters to them most on the issue of religious freedom, and then sort of follow from there to one candidate or another.
Yeah, absolutely. And that framing is so important on all the decisions that we make as we're looking at filling out our ballots, because it's always a trade-off. It's a series of priorities and prioritization in terms of what matters most, and your vote is an expression. And so when it comes to the presidential candidates, give us, if you can, just one thing, maybe kind of under the radar for both Vice President Harris and former President Trump when it comes to what their presidency would mean for religious freedom. Just give us one each of those.
Well, one thing I don't think people recall, because they weren't in the weeds like I was from 2016 to 2021-ish, is that Trump really did build an incredibly diverse staff when it came to having religious freedom experts in federal agencies. And so I think we could expect something similar if he were reelected. So it wouldn't be him making decisions about all these federal rules. It would be pretty sophisticated legal thinkers. So that's interesting. And the other part on Harris is something I already pointed to, which is that her religious background is even more complex than having a Christian father and a Hindu mother. It has to do with marrying a Jewish man, helping to raise Jewish kids, working with a Catholic president, President Joe Biden, and just building bridges across all sorts of faith groups in a way that we've never really seen before in a presidential candidate.
Great perspective, as always, Kelsey Dallas from Deseret, Deseret.com. And your coverage has been so great on this, not just today's piece, these recent pieces, as you've really dug into the weeds a little bit for us to give us that perspective in terms of the broader spectrum and scope of all of this. As always, Kelsey, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, that's Kelsey Dallas, Assistant Managing Editor for the Deseret News. You can check out all of her pieces, a complete series there at Deseret.com. And it is interesting. I think Kelsey got it absolutely right. When she said at the end of the day, I don't think you're going to call either the former president or the current vice president. They're not going to earn that label of defender of religious freedom. That may not be their thing. There's a lot of nuances in there. There's a lot of trade-offs in there. And if you really want to get into some great deep dive analysis on what a Harris presidency would mean for religious freedom, what a second term for former President Trump would mean for religious freedom, just go check those out at Deseret.com. All right, we're going to go ahead and step aside for some bottom of the hour news. Don't go anywhere. More Inside Sources coming up next. Stick around.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. A worker who was killed by a log rolling off a truck last Friday has now been identified. South Salt Lake police say Christopher Kilpack was working at about 3600 South and 7th West. And officers say he'd released a strap on a truck hauling logs. One fell on him. He was 37. There's one group very underrepresented in the ballots that have been submitted in Utah's election so far. KSL at Night host Taylor Morgan tells Dave and Dujanovic unaffiliated voters are missing.
Right now, only 22% of the votes cast so far in the election are by unaffiliated voters, and 30% of all the registered voters in Salt Lake County are unaffiliated.
Morgan says it appears the unaffiliated voters not so excited about this election, but he says there are more Salt Lake County Republicans who have cast ballots early than in the general election in 2020. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Police in Oregon say they've identified a suspect vehicle and Fires at ballot drop boxes in Portland and in Vancouver, Washington. They say an incendiary device ignited the fire in Portland. Hundreds of ballots were likely burned in one of the Vancouver fires. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day now, finishing trading at 273 points higher. And the NASDAQ finished at 48 points higher. The S&P 500 was up 15. And our KSL weather, here comes a storm tonight. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
And now a minute of kindness brought to you by One Kind Act a Day. Down in Salem, Utah, where the city organized a year-long kindness initiative, a group of high school boys made a lasting impact on a local dog walker, Angela Temple Rogers. When Angela and her little dog were confronted by two aggressive pit bulls, she quickly turned to retreat, but one of the boys noticed the situation unfolding, without hesitation, turned back, bravely chased the dogs away, ensuring the safety of Angela and her furry little companion. This thoughtful act not only showcased the boys had some bravery, but also highlighted the importance of just looking out for one another in our communities. Angela expressed her deep appreciation for the young man's quick thinking and kindness, reminding all of us that even small gestures can make a big difference in the end. Find out more about how you can be involved online at thepowerofkind.org. That's thepowerofkind.org.
Jim Weber is here from Foothill Oriental Rugs, where the semi-annual sale is underway now. Jim, describe the variety of rugs people will find when they come into your store.
We really have Utah's most complete selection, from contemporary to tribal to vegetable-dyed Afghan goods are doing really well right now. They're rich, jewel-toned colors made with vegetable dyes, and the designs are a little bit tribal, so they have a little bit of a tribal geometric edge to them, and really popular right now.
Describe what a difference it makes to have a beautiful rug in your home.
Maria, it's like a piece of art on your floor, and it will set the tone for the room. It's a handmade textile that will wear like iron, and you might want to take 2 or 3 pieces and try them, and once you get it in the room, you'll know if it's right or not. We want our customers to love what they end up with, and it's critical to see it in the space.
Don't miss out. Get your home ready for the holidays now. The semi-annual sale is underway early this year. You will find rugs up to 70% off. Foothill Oriental Rugs, 1460 South Foothill Drive, just south of Foothill Village.
Febreze. So my home is also my office, and before I can focus, every room's gotta be clean. That means tidying up, then spraying my Febreze Air Mist. Ooh, that's fresh. Febreze Air Mist scents are all high quality. They fight any weird funk, and they give my air an instant boost of freshness. So not only does my home smell good, I feel good too. After I Febreze, it's time to start my day. Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
Everywhere you look, things are getting more expensive. So at Consumer Cellular, we're lowering the price for those 50 and up. Now you can get unlimited talk, text, and data for $30 a line when you buy 2. That's just $60 a month for 2 unlimited lines. So if you're 50 and up, make the switch and save. Come on, you've earned this. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com today. Requires 2 lines of service, age validation, and credit approval, subject to system and area limits, taxes, and other fees apply.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. And here's Ricky Meese.
We still have crews on the scene of this vehicle fire northbound I-15 in Centerville. And even though they're to the right, it has caused some backups and slowdowns in the area. Also for Utah County drivers, a crash northbound I-15 at Center Street in Orem moved to the shoulder. At the Big O Tires Fall into Savings sale, come in and save up to $120 on select tires of 4 in-stock tires now through November 3rd. Big O Tires, the team you trust. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Breezy and 63 for a high today with a chance of rain and snow tomorrow with a high of only 48. Right now we're at 61 degrees. It's mostly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
As the 2024 presidential election cycle mercifully enters the final stretch, of course, the political advertising continues to be the middle of the big battle for voters' attentions. The Democrats, of course, have a pretty significant lead when it comes to ad spending, and so we want to unpack that a little bit in terms of who won the ad war, what does that mean, and will that produce real results in the end? Really thrilled to have joining us on the program today Gus Wezarek, graphics editor for the New York Times opinion column, and has a great piece on the ad war. Gus, welcome to the show.
Afternoon, Bo.
So first of all, give us kind of the lay of the land in terms of the battle, the dollars and cents, the ads, that we all get exhausted, and there's a few places in the country that are probably more exhausted than the rest of us.
Sure. So you're the right of it. Democrats have spent a lot more than Republicans, at least nationwide, when you're looking at TV broadcast ads, which is what we did. They spent $213 million more on ads, at least since August 1st. And what we did was we looked at all of those ads, 3.7 million of them, and we wanted to figure out how many people actually saw those ads. And what we found was that it led to Democrats having 9.9 billion, more views of ads nationwide. So yeah, it's very clear to say that, like, at least at the nationwide level, Democrats sort of ran away with it.
Yeah.
But then when you're looking at, you mentioned how ads could be really inescapable in some of the states, and that is very true. So in Hawaii, we're talking about like the average ads over the past 3 months, maybe like 30. The average household in swing states that also had competitive Senate and House races, it was closer to like 1,400, which is like 15 ads per day. So if you lived in Pennsylvania or you live in, Wisconsin or Michigan, it's going to be pretty hard to avoid seeing those ads.
I say you're pretty much sunk in.
Yeah.
Programming is getting cut down by a lot, but the ad dollars are coming in for those as well. And so as you looked at those and assessed those, of course, the question always comes is, how much is enough and how much is too much, and can you have too much? And the amount that the Democrats have poured in is really a stunning number. But what's the likely return on that? And is there a fatigue factor that might be counterproductive in the end?
Yeah, I had the same question. The experts I talked to said no, at least in terms of the fatigue factor. So, I thought, well, if you see an ad so many times it becomes annoying, and then you're like, well, I'm just going to sit this one out, or I'm going to vote for the other person. They said that was not the case, at least when they've looked at it. They said the most important thing is to sort of like stay equal. Basically, you want to be neck and neck there with your competitor, especially in these last few weeks. Ads, the effect of ads in the political science research fades really quickly. So if you show somebody an ad 5 days later, it's not going to have much of an effect on how they vote or what their opinions are. So you need to have a ton of momentum all the way, into the days right before Election Day if you want the ads to matter.
Yeah, and you looked at some historical components there. You looked at the 2016 race in particular, but then you also got into some of the specific messaging around the ads. Give us a little breakdown in those two spaces.
Sure. So in terms of messaging, we looked at that really closely. All of the ads had sort of topics associated with them, so we were able to look into, which issues were Democrats talking about most in their advertising and which issues were Republicans talking about most. And for Democrats, especially House Democrats, where they have the biggest lead in terms of ad volume, it was abortion, far and away. So more than 40% of their ad dollars were spent on ads about abortion. For Republicans, they barely spent anything on ads about abortion. It was all about immigration and crime. So there is the sense that, like, even if Democrats have, this big advantage in terms of how many ads people have seen, if immigration is the issue that gets people to leave their couch, and go out to the polls next week, it might not matter as much. So there are tons of questions, when it comes to how much ads matter, and it totally depends on the specific race and the specific candidate. And, was the ad a good one? Was it clever? When did the person see it? So there are many variables up in the air. But we do know at the end of the day, in terms of volume, that Democrats did have the lead.
Yeah, and give us some historical perspective there in terms of what did we see in 2020 versus 2016? What does that look like in terms of who's winning the ad war and the ultimate results?
Yeah. So I'm not an expert on sort of the historical picture. I will say, one of the questions we had going into this was 2016, which is because Hillary Clinton outraised Donald Trump by a factor of 2-1, which is, just absolutely massive. And she essentially had a very similar lead in terms of the number of ads that she showed in the final weeks of the election, but she still lost. So the question that political scientists have been trying to answer for the past, 8 years sort of, is, does that mean that ads aren't effective anymore? Did she do something wrong in terms of the types of ads she showed? Or is it just the case that she lost, but she would have lost by a lot more if she hadn't advertised? And so I don't think there's a really clear answer there, but the conclusions overall are that advertising does matter. For candidates who sort of don't, who just don't advertise at all, almost always lose. So you have to be in the game. You have to play the game.
That's right. I think the way you described that was pitch perfect in terms of you got to be kind of in that neck and neck where it feels competitive, even if the other has a few more. It's probably okay as long as you're in the ball game. Give us one last thing, Gus, as you went through this and wrote this great piece. You can check out Gus's piece at NewYorkTimes.com. Give us something kind of under the radar that maybe was kind of an aha moment or maybe a kind of a think again moment when it comes to ads.
Sure. Well, I can give you on the cutting room floor, there was a part of it that we didn't include in the piece, but I thought was pretty interesting. So we watched every single one of the ads that Trump and Harris ran, and we categorized them by their tone. So were they attack ads? Were they ads that were promoting the candidate? Or were they contrast ads where they were saying, I'll do this, but the other will do this? And what we found was that Harris's ads were a pretty mixed bag. In the beginning, she ran a lot of ads sort of defining the narrative around herself. This is who I am. These are my policies. This is my background. And then around the debate, she moved into contrast ads. So she was saying, this. Donald Trump has said he's going to do this, and he did do this. And then at the end, she pivoted a little bit to, okay, Donald Trump is unfit for office, unhinged. We've seen a lot of those ads over the past weeks. Trump's ads was exclusively negative. 88% of his ads were attack ads against Harris. And that hasn't ever really been the case. And I think that's because Donald Trump is a brand. He's a nationwide or nationally known brand. So all he has to do to win is just, show that Harris, all he has to do is go on the attack. And because Harris had so little time to run her campaign after Biden dropped out, I think, I don't know if that'll end up hurting her, but we did see it in the data that they ended up running very, very different campaigns in terms of the tone of their ads.
Fascinating stuff. Great piece by Gus Wezurek, graphics editor for New York Times opinion column. Gus, thanks for joining us today. Fantastic insight.
Thank you. It was great to talk.
All right, that's Gus Wezurek from the New York Times. And really interesting in terms of how much was spent. And clearly, the Harris campaign won that battle going away. We'll see how it framed and how it actually worked. The tone of the message that Gus was talking about at the end, I think, is so crucial. Which of those strategies is going to play out better? We'll continue to watch it all for you here on KSL News Radio. We'll be right back.
Food brings people together, but many families don't know where their next meal is coming from. In Utah, 317,000 people, many of whom are children, are struggling with food insecurity. And Macy's is continuing the tradition of bringing hope to families in need. You can help provide hope by donating to Macy's Harvest of Hope Drive, now through November 30th. All donations will be donated to a local food bank to serve families in our communities. Purchase an icon for any amount or a prepackaged bag of food with items that food pantries need most at any Macy's store or online at Macys.com. Look for items tagged with the Harvest of Hope icon throughout the store. A portion of sales from those items will also be donated to local food pantries. Together, we can make a difference in our communities and provide hope to families and children facing food insecurity. Visit Macy's.com or your local Macy's grocery store to learn more.
You do countless things without a second thought to protect your family and home. Every time you're in the car, you buckle your seatbelt. Before the next load of laundry, you remove the dryer lint. When you head out, you always lock your doors. And one simple task, done far less often, can protect your family and home this winter. Schedule a furnace inspection by a certified heating contractor to check for safety and efficiency. A friendly reminder from Enbridge Gas.
An emergency can happen any second. Here's a few seconds to think about where you'd go. When you need medical care fast, the closest emergency room is a smart thing to know. Common Spirit Health ERs are your direct path between feeling scared or uncomfortable and feeling better. Find emergency care in your neighborhood at mountain.commonspirit.org.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa this weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa this weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Utah State Fair Park. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates, this weekend only. Utah State Fair Park. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Utah State Fair Park. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Utah State Fair Park. Friday, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Utah State Fair Park. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Mom and Dad used to argue about everything, especially about Dad's drinking. My family went from totally crazy to quiet, calm, and even peaceful when Mom started going to Al-Anon family groups. I wanted a better relationship with Dad, so I asked Mom if she would take me to her Al-Anon meetings or to Alateen. I'm sure glad I did. If someone's drinking troubling you, you might be surprised at what you can learn in an Al-Anon or Alateen family group from people just like you. Call 1-888-4-ALANON or go to alanon.org.
Jeff Kaplan. I'm energized by breaking news. First of all, because it's right now, and second of all, because in many cases the audience needs to know. There's no more important service that we can provide, and I find it critically important to get more details to the audience as quickly as possible. There's nothing more energizing than that for me. Not at all. The most important thing we do is breaking news. I am gratified that so many people listen to me every afternoon on KSL, but what they don't know is that there are so many people behind the scenes making it happen, checking on the traffic, answering the phones, making the calls, talking to the newsmakers. They're out in the street, into the field to get the raw information, and then putting it all together so that I can sit in front of a microphone and be a source of information every afternoon. But there are so many people who make it happen. That's what you don't know.
Ride Home with Jeff Kaplan, weekdays 3 to 7 on KSL News Radio.
Question: what will you find on all over-the-counter or OTC medicine packages to help you choose the right drug and use it safely? The answer: the Drug Facts label. This label lists the medicine's active ingredients and purpose, how much to take, and warnings you should know before using it. Remember, even OTC medicines you buy without a prescription can cause side effects you don't want. So follow the information listed on the Drug Facts label. For more information, visit fda.gov/Drug Facts label. A message from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, fire crews are making steady progress containing the Yellow Lake fire. Tomorrow's storm should help. Second, students at the U of U and BYU are competing in a food drive leading up to the rivalry football game. And third, the latest ABC News Ipsos poll shows Vice President Harris with a very narrow lead over President Trump. 60 degrees, mostly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. If you've missed any of the program today, don't worry. No stress. We're chilling out today. J.D. Chili joined us from Reason.com and talking about how all of us need to just chill out just a little bit, especially when it comes to the 2024 election cycle. But you can chill out because if you missed any portion of the program, just go to kslpodcast.com, and those will be up later this afternoon. You can go through any of our guests. We had some great guests in the studio today. Michael Strain from American Enterprise Institute, and, of course, Natalie Gochner from the Kem Gardner Institute up at the University of Utah, talking about the economics of all of this. And it's so easy to get caught up in all of the free stuff that all the big candidates are promising. And we had to step back and look at what are the economics of all of this and recognize that there are absolutely predictable consequences. Absolute predictability of consequences, especially when it comes to economics. And so we've got to think again about all these things that we're going to hear over the next 8 days as the promises continue to pour in, as both the presidential candidates in particular are trying to sway those last few undecided, uncommitted, yet to be determined voters. Those who may or may not show up at the polls. And so the offering of deductions for your car payment on your taxes, things for entrepreneurs to start new businesses, and on and on and on the list goes. It really does feel like a scene out of an Oprah show where everybody gets everything. You get one, we all get one. There's a lot of get ones going around. And that should send your spidey sense up. And your suspicion up a little bit. Those are easy promises to make. They're almost impossible to keep. And sometimes I wonder if there even is intent to keep that promise. It's easier to get into power, and then you can stay in a whole lot easier. And so those are things we're going to continue to watch and follow as we go throughout the next 7.5 days now, as we march our way towards the first Tuesday of November. And we'll just remind you, first Wednesday will come as well, and we'll cover that for you. We got you covered here on KSL News Radio, so stay with us throughout all of that. I want to round out the program today with just a couple things, though. One of my favorite quotes from Jonathan Winters, of course, great actor, comedian, and he once said, I couldn't wait for success or happiness, so I went ahead without it. And I love people who have that kind of attitude of, I'm not going to just wait around and hope that success comes along or that happiness comes along. I'm just going to, whether it's here or not, I'm going to keep going. And eventually it'll catch up to me. And those are the kind of people who make a difference in our communities every day. We talked to one of those during the show today, Jenny Taylor, of course, from the Major Brent Taylor Foundation, and the way they go about their work to honor our veterans and our military women and men. And there's a whole slew of events that begin coming up on November the 1st. They can't contain Veterans Day in a single day in North Ogden. They extend it for over 2 full weeks, and a lot of opportunities there. And they just move along. They don't wait for success. They don't wait for happiness. They just keep moving forward. And then, of course, success and happiness catch up to them eventually because they're moving. They're on a northbound train. They're going somewhere that matters, and people get on that train, and everything works out that way. I want to give a shout-out to another one of those folks who just wouldn't wait around for that, and it's our good friend Sam Dingman. And Sam is one of our favorite Down syndrome friends and has been a friend of the show for a long time and has been going through his own battle with cancer on top. And Sam, today, because he wouldn't just wait around for success, he just moved on. And today he got to ring the bell after his cancer treatments. And Sam and his parents and his family and community are just part of what makes Utah an extraordinary place, because they don't just wait around. They don't sit around and whine and moan and woe is me and, oh, this is so bad and so awful. It's no, this is an opportunity, and we're going to meet it head on. We're going to go at it all out, and then we'll see what happens. And amazingly, miracles happen, success happens, happiness always follows. And so that leads all of us to some questions we all ought to be asking. Are we just waiting around for success and happiness to come along, or are we going to go ahead without it, regardless of if it's there or not? And so you have to ask yourself, are you waiting? Are you just hanging out, waiting for that chance of a lifetime to come? that it's just going to whisk you off to the lifestyles of the rich and famous and greener pastures? Are you hunkered down just hoping for that person relationship or that job opportunity to come waltzing in? Are you passively just sitting at home anticipating the passion and purpose you long for in your life is just going to ring you up on the phone? Or are you counting the days down until your ship comes in with all of those things that you hope in a nice retirement or a better future? And the problem is if you're sitting around waiting for all of those things, I'm just telling you, it's a long wait. In fact, I think a lot of us, far too many of us, in fact, are wasting our lives waiting for a winning lottery ticket to be delivered to the front door. Some aren't even willing to drive to Wendover or Wyoming to get it. And so the question you have to ask yourself is the question of Jonathan Winters. Are you willing to go on ahead without success or happiness? Are you truly willing to just push onward through the muck and the mire and the mess of a daily grind? Are you really committed to go forward and face the big obstacles, the relentless rejection, the all too numerous naysayers that are going to encounter you along the way? And can you survive the emotional roller coaster, the mental gymnastics of the journey that it actually takes to get to a place like success and happiness? And for me, that's always the test and always the question is, are you willing to go on? Or are you just going to sit there and wait for it? We've been talking about time a lot over the last week, and the fact that both of the major candidates for president in this year's election are living in two different places of time. Former President Trump is kind of hanging out in the we're going to go back to what was and make it great again. Vice President Harris is off in some misty, enchanted future where it's all going to get better than it is. Neither are willing to be present in the moment, in the here and now, which, by the way, is the only place leadership can happen is in the present. Yes, leaders can remind us of great things of the past, important principles. Yes, leaders can give us a vision for a better future, but they earn their stripes. They earn the title of